What if everything you built in 43 years could disappear in one single moment? Jake Harrison sat in the corner booth of Murphy's Diner at 3 in the morning, staring at his phone as red warning messages flooded the screen. His technology company, worth $8 billion, was crashing right now. Every server, every backup, every safety system he had trusted for decades had somehow failed all at once. The bright ceiling lights hummed softly overhead, while Jake's world fell apart quietly in his hands. 20,000 employees, millions of customers, all depending on computer systems that had just stopped working. His wife Patricia was sleeping peacefully back home, not knowing that by morning they might lose everything they had worked for together. The diner was almost empty, except for an older man reading a newspaper, and a waitress with kind eyes who had been quietly refilling coffee cups all night. Jake had chosen this place to hide, to think, to figure out how to tell the world that everything had fallen apart. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Jake had always been the problem solver, the man with answers. Growing up in a small Ohio town, he had fixed neighbors' radios and televisions before he was 15. His grandfather taught him that every puzzle had a solution if you looked at it from the right angle. That idea had built Harrison Technologies, from a garage startup into one of America's most trusted companies. But tonight felt different. The coffee grew cold in his cup as he scrolled through emergency reports from his technical team. The crash wasn't random. It was planned, almost perfect in its destruction. Every safety backup they had built, every protection they had installed had been gotten around with perfect precision. "More coffee, honey?" The waitress appeared beside his table, her name tag reading Lily. She was probably 35, with rough hands that showed years of hard work and smile lines that suggested she had found joy despite life's challenges. "Please," Jake managed, trying to keep the panic from his voice. Lily poured carefully, her movements steady and practiced. She glanced at his phone, then back at his face with the kind of look that made Jake's stomach tighten. "Rough night?" she asked quietly, setting down the pot. There was no judgment in her voice, just honest concern. Jake nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "How do you explain that you're watching your life's work die one failed connection at a time?" His phone buzzed again. Another system offline, another million customers affected. The news would have the story by sunrise. Stock prices would drop. Jobs would be lost. "Sometimes the worst nights teach us the most," Lily said softly, then moved to check on her other customer. Jake watched her go, wondering how a stranger could offer more comfort than all his expensive consultants and crisis managers combined. His phone rang. His chief technology officer calling from the emergency command center they had set up in downtown Seattle. "Jake, we've tried everything. The pattern doesn't match anything we've ever seen. It's like someone who understood our systems better than we do found a way to turn them against themselves." Jake closed his eyes, feeling 43 years of careful planning slip through his fingers like sand. By morning, everything would be different. But sitting in this quiet diner, something unexpected was beginning to stir, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, help could come from the most unlikely place. The next hour passed like a nightmare in slow motion. Jake's phone became a constant stream of bad news. Backup servers failing one after another, customer information possibly stolen, federal investigators already asking questions. Each update felt like another nail in a coffin he was building for himself. Lily returned with fresh coffee, and this time she stayed. "You know," she said, sitting down in the booth across from him, "I've seen that look before. My ex-husband had it the night his auto shop burned down, like watching your whole world disappear through your fingers." Jake looked up, surprised by her honesty. "I'm sorry about your husband's shop." "Ex-husband," she corrected with a sad smile. "He never rebuilt, just gave up, started drinking, blamed everyone else. That's when I learned something important about people. Some folks crumble when everything falls apart. Others find a way to rise. What if there's nothing left to rise from?" Jake's voice cracked slightly. He had never spoken so honestly to a stranger. Lily studied his face with those gentle eyes. "Mind if I ask what kind of business you're in?" "Technology. Computer systems mostly." Jake decided not to mention the empire part, the billionaire part, the 20,000 employees part. "Ah." Lily nodded knowingly. "My daughter Jenny's studying computer science at the community college. She's always going on about systems and networks. Drives me crazy, but I listen anyway." She paused, then asked quietly, "What exactly broke?" Jake found himself explaining, not the technical details, but the impossible nature of the failure. How every safeguard had been gotten around, every backup corrupted, every failsafe neutralized with precision that seemed almost supernatural. Lily listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or asking simple questions that showed she understood more than he expected. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Jenny showed me something once," she said finally. "Called it a logic bomb or something like that. Said it was like hiding a tiny explosive inside a computer that could wait years before going off. She was working on ways to detect them for some school project." Lily paused, then looked directly into Jake's eyes. "What if someone didn't just attack your systems tonight? What if they planted something years ago, waiting for exactly the right moment? If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up." Jake's phone buzzed again, but for the first time in hours, he didn't immediately check it. Instead, he stared at this unlikely woman, who had just offered him something his million-dollar consultants couldn't. Hope that maybe the problem had a solution they hadn't considered. Jake felt a spark of possibility. For the first time since the nightmare began. "Your daughter, she studies this kind of thing?" "Studies it, lives it, breathes it," Lily said with a mother's mixture of pride and frustration. "Works at the campus computer lab, helps fix problems other students can't solve. She's got this gift for seeing patterns where other people just see chaos." Jake's hands trembled slightly as he set down his coffee cup. Do you think she might be willing to look at something? "I know it's 3 miles in the morning, but, honey, Jenny doesn't sleep when there's a puzzle to solve. She's probably awake right now, working on some project." Lily pulled out an old phone, the kind that didn't cost 3 months' salary. "Let me call her." While Lily spoke quietly to her daughter, Jake allowed himself to imagine the impossible. What if this waitress, this woman he had met by pure chance in a roadside diner, what if her daughter could see something that teams of experts had missed? His own phone rang. Patricia calling from their bedroom in Bellevue. "Jake, I woke up and you weren't here. The news is saying something about Harrison Technologies." Jake's throat tightened. "Patricia, I need to tell you something." He walked to a quiet corner of the diner and explained everything. The scope of the disaster, what it meant for their company, their employees, their future together. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then, in the voice that had supported him through 22 years of marriage, she said, "Whatever we're facing, we'll face it together. Come home when you're ready. I'll put on a pot of coffee, and we'll figure out what happens next." Jake returned to the table just as Lily was ending her call. "Jenny's on her way. Live's about 10 minutes from here, and she's bringing her laptop. She says if there's a logic bomb buried in your systems, she might know how to find it." "But why would you help me? You don't even know who I am," Lily smiled. And in that moment, Jake saw the wisdom that comes from years of serving others, of finding dignity in honest work, of raising a daughter while rebuilding a life after heartbreak. Because sometimes the most important thing you can do is help a stranger who's lost everything. "My daughter taught me that computer problems usually have computer solutions." She refilled his cup. "One more time, and because I believe good people deserve second chances. Have you ever faced something like this? Let us know in the comments." 20 minutes later, a young woman with her mother's kind eyes walked through the diner door, carrying hope in the form of a worn laptop bag. Jenny looked exactly like Jake had imagined. Early 20s, bright eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the confident way she moved that comes from knowing you're good at something. Important, she slid into the booth, next to her mother, and opened her laptop without ceremony. "Mom says you've got a systems failure that doesn't make sense," she said, her fingers already flying across the keyboard. "Tell me exactly what happened in order." Jake explained the timeline again, but this time Jenny interrupted with precise questions that showed a depth of understanding that impressed him. She asked about specific protocols, backup sequences, security layers that his own team hadn't even mentioned in their panic. "Can you get me access to your diagnostic logs?" she asked. "I want to see the exact pattern of failures." Jake hesitated. These were proprietary systems, trade secrets worth millions. But looking at this young woman's determined face and her mother's encouraging nod, he made a decision that would change everything. He opened his secure access and shared his screen. For 30 minutes, Jenny worked in focused silence while Jake and Lily watched. Occasionally she would mutter something under her breath, or type rapid notes in a separate window. Jake found himself holding his breath, hardly daring to hope. "There," Jenny said suddenly, pointing to a string of code on the screen. "See that? That's not a random failure. That's definitely a logic bomb, and it's sophisticated. Someone planted this in your core systems probably 3, maybe 4 years ago. But that's impossible. We have security reviews, penetration testing. This wasn't planted by an outsider, Jenny said quietly. This came from inside. Someone with legitimate access. Someone who understood your systems well enough to hide this so deep that regular security scans wouldn't find it. Jake felt the room spinning slightly. Someone he had trusted, someone he had worked with for years, had been planning this destruction all along. But here's the good news, Jenny continued, her fingers dancing across the keyboard again. Logic bombs are designed to destroy and hide evidence, but this one, it's got a signature. And if I can trace that signature? She paused, concentrated, then smiled. I can build a reversal program. It'll take time, maybe 6 hours. But I can undo most of the damage. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales. Jake stared at the screen where Jenny was already beginning to construct lines of code that looked like poetry to his untrained eyes. In this unlikely place, with these unlikely heroes, his world was about to be reborn. 6 hours later, as dawn painted the Seattle sky in shades of pink and gold, Jake watched his systems come back online one by one. Jenny had worked through the night, her mother bringing endless coffee and encouragement, while Jake learned more about resilience and kindness than he had absorbed in 20 years of boardrooms. The reversal program worked like magic. Customer data was restored. Servers hummed back to life, and the panic that had gripped his company slowly transformed into amazed relief. But more importantly, Jenny's forensic analysis had identified the insider who had planted the logic bomb, a disgruntled former executive who had been planning this. Revenge for years. As his phone filled with messages of gratitude from employees and customers, Jake found himself most grateful for 2 people he had met by accident in a roadside diner. He had offered to pay Jenny for her work, but she had refused, saying the learning experience was payment enough. There is one thing you could do, Lily had said as they prepared to leave. Jenny's been trying to get an internship with a technology company, but most won't give someone from community college a chance. Jake smiled, the first genuine smile he had managed in 24 hours. I think I know someone who might be interested in hiring the best problem solver I've ever met. 3 months later, Jake returned to Murphy's diner. Lily was still there, still serving coffee with that same gentle grace, but now she wore a small pin on her uniform. A gift from Harrison Technologies, recognizing her as the mother of their newest junior systems analyst. How's Jenny doing? Jake asked, settling into that same corner booth. Thriving, Lily beamed. She loves the work and her teammates love her. Says she's learning something new every day. She paused, pouring his coffee. And how are you doing? Really doing? Jake considered the question seriously. The crisis had changed him, stripped away layers of assumption about what mattered most. He had restructured his company to be more transparent, more collaborative. He had started a scholarship program for community college students studying technology. Most importantly, he had learned to listen more carefully to voices that came from unexpected places. I'm doing better than I have in years, he said honestly. Turns out the worst night of my life taught me more about success than all my best days combined. Lily smiled, that knowing smile that had first given him hope. Sometimes the best teachers wear aprons instead of suits. As Jake left the diner that morning, he carried with him the lesson that would guide him for years to come. That wisdom often comes disguised as ordinary kindness, and that the people who serve others quietly day after day often possess the exact grace we need to save ourselves. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovering hope in the most unexpected places.